Hello everyone. So in today's video, we will discuss the basic difference between simple interest and compound interest. So interest is basically the component which we get on our investment, which is mainly the debt investment, like investment in banks or TDRs, which we place in the bank, and returns which we get on our saving account, which we have in the bank. So there are two types of interest. One is simple interest and another one is compound interest. Let's suppose an investor decides to invest $5,000 in a bank for 20 years at a rate of 7%. So the interest rate over here is 7%, the time period is 20 years, and the investment amount is $5,000. Over the period of 20 years, he will be accumulating $12,000, which means at the end of 20 years, his account balance will be $12,000, assuming the interest rate stays constant at 7%. So over 20 years time period, he will be generating a total amount of $12,000. On the other hand, if that person invests using the compound interest formula, the compound interest basically accounts for the interest component as well. The interest component which we get over the period of time, that is also accumulated in the compound interest. So let's suppose same $5,000 is invested for 20 years at a rate of 7%, and in compound interest form, we will be getting $19,348. So how we will solve it? Let's try this on our spreadsheet. So first we will discuss simple interest. So in case of simple interest, assuming so there are 20 years. So I've taken 20 years and the investment amount is $5,000. So for 20 years, this will be as it is. And the interest rate is 7%. So let's check the interest amount which we will get for every year. So simply we will take our investment into the interest rate which we will get. So we will be getting an interest of 350. So what is going on over here in simple interest, we get interest on our initial investment, whatever the initial investment amount is. In this case, it is $5,000. We will be getting interest on our initial investment amount or the principal amount which we have invested. So 7% every year we will be getting on our initial investment. So initial investment is 5,000, which will remain as it is. So the interest component you can see over here is the same every year because we are getting 7% return every year on our initial investment. So therefore the interest amount every year will be same. So if we club all these figures, assuming we club all these figures of for 20 years, the total interest amount is 7,000. So this is the total interest which we have earned over 20 years period. In this amount, we will add our initial investment, which we have invested. So that initial investment is basically $5,000. And the total amount which we will get will be $12,000. So this is basically the total amount which we are getting. This is basically the case for simple interest. So in simple interest, we are getting same interest every year. Let's solve this example using the compound interest method. So for compound interest, the same number of years, 20, dragging the number of years, 20 years, and the investment amount is $5,000. Interest rate is same 7%. So for the first year, the interest amount will be 350. Now, at the end of first year, we will be having an ending balance of how much we will be having an ending balance. We invested $5,000 and we will be clubbing our interest amount, which is 350. So 5,000 plus the interest amount, which is 350. So the ending balance, the balance at the end of first year will be 5350, which is the investment amount 5,000 and our interest amount of 350. So we will club both and we'll get our ending balance 5350. Now, the turning point over here, in compound interest, we get interest on our last year's balance or on our ending balance. We'll be getting next year's interest on our ending balance, which means for year two, we will be getting interest on our year one's ending balance. So year one's ending balance was 5350. So we'll be getting the interest at 5350. So let's solve it. How much we are getting? That is 374.50. So we are getting an interest of 375. Now let's club both and we're getting the total amount at the end of year two, which is 5,725. For third year, again, we will be using year two's ending balance and we will be applying same 7% interest rate and we will be calculating our interest amount. So the basic difference between simple interest and compound interest is that in simple interest, we are getting interest on our initial investment. Every year we are getting interest on our initial investment. So our interest amount is same over the period of time. But in compound interest, we are getting interest on our last year's balance, which means last year's balance will have the interest component as well. And we are getting interest on that component as well, which is known as interest on interest, which means we are getting additional interest on that interest amount as well. So let's solve it further. So at the end of 20th year, we are having a total balance amount of 19,348, which you can see over here as well in this example. The compound interest, we are getting total amount at the end of year 20, which is 19,348. So let's check the difference between the answer of compound interest and simple interest. So 19,348 minus 12,000, which we got in simple interest. So this is basically the additional interest amount which we are getting, the differential component, that is 734A. So our compound interest answer will always be greater than simple interest, because to sum up, simple interest, we get interest on our initial investment. So the interest amount is same every year. But conversely, on the other hand, in compound interest, we get interest on our last year's balance. And when we get interest on our last year's last year balance includes the previous year's interest component as well. So we are technically getting interest on interest. So therefore, compound interest ending balance will always be greater than simple interest, because the additional amount, which is the difference between compound interest and simple interest, is the additional interest which we are getting, interest on interest. So just to sum up, with this graph as well, you can see the number of years on x-axis and the amount on y-axis. So in simple interest, if a person invests in simple interest through simple interest method, he will be getting a certain return. But when he invests through the compound interest, he will be getting a higher amount if he will invest through the compound interest. So compound interest generally is a better technique as compared to simple interest. In today's world, mostly the investments have the compound interest methodology, and mostly people or mostly the banks are offering the compound interest, because whatever is the month year's ending balance, we are getting interest on that for the next month. So technically, in today's world, we are mostly following the compound interest technique. I hope you like the video. Thank you.